Hello and welcome to the Change Podcast. My name's Brent and I have my friend Nathan Carr with me today. And we are so excited about this episode of Changed. And today, I'll tell you, Nathan, he was introduced to me by another guest that we have had on the show previously, and that's Leah. And Leah has done so much with her ministry, and Nathan, she introduced me to Nathan and his ministry with what he's got going on. It is just so powerful. Nathan, thank you for being on the show here with us today.
Yeah.
I'm going to first just ask that maybe you give everyone a little bit of your background, but also answer the question, what was your encounter with Jesus that left you changed? And I'll kick it over to you.
All right. I'm Nathan Carr. I probably started out my journey living the wrong life. I was heavy into drugs and selling drugs for 26 years. I ended up in jail. And during that time in jail, I was really struggling. I was looking at 20 years minimum mandatory, which means I had to do the 20 years.
Was that in Virginia?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was locally. And so being incarcerated, I was really struggling with a lot of stuff. And there was a young kid. I call him a young kid because he's barely 18 years old.
Sure.
He was in there reading the book of Job every night. Once we locked the cells down and everybody was in the room for the night and the lights were out, you'd hear somebody reading the Bible. And
like out loud.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Really loud. Like
really loud.
Screaming it so everybody could hear it. And the book of Job really started hitting home to me. And, being in the situation I was in, I had a lot of money. I had a lot of materialistic things, and I felt like I had it all before I got arrested, although I had nothing because I didn't have God. And during that moment, I started realizing how important this story was and how it's showing God's favor over this man. And, this guy was so obedient to God and how God rewarded him for that obedience. And it really intrigued me and it got me excited about the Bible. And so July 7th, 2017, I really hit a spot one night. I was just begging, crying out to God, pleading, get me out of this situation. I'm going to be in my late 60s whenever I get out. My family's going to be gone. I was going to lose family members and things like that. And I was really struggling with it. And I just started praying. I'm familiar with prayer and have grandparents that were church founders. And my grandmother was a worship leader for decades. And my grandfather was a pastor. So I was familiar with the word, but I never lived it. And
sure.
I really reached out to him that night, and man, I slept better than I've ever slept in my entire life. I cried like a baby, but I slept better than a baby.
It's
And
awesome.
it was really cool. The next morning I got up and I called my mom, and she could sense a difference in my voice, and I wasn't worried no more. I wasn't panicking. I was okay. I was content with where I was at, and which is kind of hard to say, being content in jail. But it was a lifesaver. And she broke down on the phone, was crying, and she told me, she was like, the Holy Spirit met you last night. And I realized that it was tears of joy, and I didn't know what that meant yet. I just knew it felt different and it felt good and I liked it. And it was real peaceful. So I ended up transferring pods and going back to the pod where the guy was at, and he had been transferred to a different facility, to Middle River. And I'd say about 2 or 3 weeks had gone by, and nothing really was going on in the pod. There was a lot of tension, a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing. It was back to normal jail. And one night, God was like, you need to read the Bible. So I grab my Bible, I walk over to the door, and I'm standing there. There's a light out in the hallway kind of shining in my room. And I just opened it up. I didn't have any particular verses picked out or anything like that. And I just started reading. out loud. And the next morning, a guy comes up to me and he was like, "How'd you know I needed to hear that?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "You were spot on with some things I'm dealing with in my life." And I was kind of caught off guard. I was like, "Wow, God used me for that." And it was a pretty cool experience. So I did that for the next 7 months. And literally almost every day, somebody would come up to me and would thank me or would want to know what book that was out of and things like that. And ended up like doing Bible studies with guys and stuff like that. I had no clue what I was doing, but God was leading me and directing me. And I was being obedient like Job was. And it really turned out really good. And, so once I got out, that landed me in addiction recovery because I was a heavy addict, and started working with Celebrate Recovery at the Nazarene Church, and did some things like that. Well, I'd gotten out on bond, so surprisingly, I got out on bond. We got the right judge, we got the right timing. It worked out really good. So I'm out on bond, and I go to Celebrate Recovery and get involved in that. I had to go back for my sentencing, and it started hitting me again. I was getting paranoid and scared and, things like that. So I ended up getting just another 9 months. So during that 9 months, I'm in Middle River and I do a 52-week Bible study in 52 days. I read the Bible from Genesis all the way through Revelations. I even read the stuff in the back of the Bible that didn't have anything to do with anything. Like I literally read the whole Bible. And it was just really comforting, to be able to have that time, because I know out here in the real world, you don't have that time like you do whenever you're in jail. And it really built my strength and my faith and, my growth with God. And it was really impactful in my life and made a serious change. So whenever I got out, finally, after the 9 months, I got back into Celebrate Recovery, did a step study, ended up leading a step study, did leadership training and sponsorship training. I've been a leader there now for almost 6 years. I've been
Wow, that's
clean
awesome.
almost 7 years.
That's
No
awesome.
drugs. And, it's been really cool. I even joined on with Virginia Mennonite Missions and started doing some mission work in prison ministry and working with the jail and inmates whenever they get out of the jail. Sponsor guys that are in multiple different prisons throughout the state of Virginia. It just kind of felt like God was calling me to some other things. And so a guy that I sponsor at Celebrate Recovery, he was telling me about this girl at Grace Covenant Church, who you all know as Leah. And that's how we met. And for 9 months, roughly, I tried asking her out, and I was really drawn to her because it was kind of the female version of me. She had gone through all this stuff,
Yeah.
and we really connected. And funny thing is, we ended up. She remembered one night that we had actually met in our past life, and I'd kind of helped her with a place to stay for a couple of days because she was in some trouble. And it was just weird how God had worked on both of us and then brought us back and put us into this situation. But so I started going to New Life Recovery at Grace Covenant. Been going there, every Thursday for a little over 3.5 years or so. And just started feeling like there was more that I needed to do. And it was really weighing on me that there's no rehabs around here. I've been working with recovery and sending people all over the place. And
Yeah.
God was like, open up a rehab. Help those that were like you get the help that you've gotten. And so that's been my focus. We started our own ministry, Resurrected Ministries. And, I've been doing that now. We got our nonprofit set up. Things are going good. Trying to get some money raised to buy a facility to open the first Christ-centered men's recovery home in the Valley. And, it's been rewarding by saying yes and just doing what God calls you to do. It's been a blessing. Since then, me and Leah have conjoined our ministries, and once we get a men's house open, we're going to open a house for the women. She'll oversee the women's house. I oversee the men's house.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to conjoin our boards together and our mission support teams together and things like that, and start raising money and get this thing going. So
That's so awesome.
yeah,
I I hear this and I'm just like, how many people are listening to this, and it's just it's admirable that you listen when someone else was reading the Bible, and you, some people might think that, oh, well, you're kind of a captive audience. Well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, you could probably figure out ways to tune it out or
oh
ignore it or whatever.
yeah,
And you didn't. And for anyone that's in that scenario, it's just really inspiring. But then also I think about it from never having to be in that scenario. It's like, well, how much valuable do you think that it is for somebody that's not having to have to choose whether or not they're incarcerated, or what they're going to do with their time? Like, what if there's somebody that's not there? It's like you're saying, like, was hard out in the real life to
yeah,
find time to do this stuff. But how vital is it for people to find time to read the Bible and do this stuff? Because it's not about the Bible as a set of rules. It's about what's God saying to you.
yeah,
And if you never make time to see what he wrote to the entire population of the world, because he wrote it with this type of people hear the living word of God. Well, it absolutely is a living word. And as you read it, it hits every single person in a different way. If you're in a spot to receive, a
yeah,
lot of people, they're just not in a spot to receive, but if
yeah.
they make that time and they go
Mhm.
seeking God, I just believe that it's probably one of the most best investments of their time that they could do, more so than anything else.
Yeah,
I talk to a lot of people, Nathan, and they tell me a lot that they could be working to provide for their family. They could be doing these different things, and we got to do these things, right? We have to be able, at some point, to be able to take care of our family. But really, if it's all God's anyway, you know, why don't more people just lean on Him? Like, why don't more people just take that time and read His
good
Word?
question.
Yeah, I don't know, but I so appreciate your account. I was going to say your story, but it's your account. And story just doesn't do it justice. It's your
Yeah,
account of what happened in your life, and we're thankful for that. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with people with as we're coming out of here? I mean, you so greatly just put together what you're doing to walk out this change that you've experienced. You're impacting other people. You're going back and saying, hey, come with me. I've walked this road and
yeah,
Jesus showed me a way out. I'm going to help you find your own way out with Jesus's help. Like, is there
yeah,
anything else along this path that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
yeah. Well, what's really important, coming out of that situation, being incarcerated, um, I had a lot of support. Um, my mom's church,
Yeah.
they was sending people in to visit with me, sending me scripture to read and study and things like that. And whenever I got out, actually, one of the elders from the church, he's the retired pastor there. Uh, he's the head of my mission support team now. They gave me a place to stay. And that was one of the reasons the judge was cooperative to let me out. So, just having that community surround you and kind of keep you motivated and hold you accountable for your actions, and willing to listen, willing to help, willing to teach you, all the things that you need to get back on your feet. That's so important. You can't get out and go right back to the same people. You can't get out and think that everything's going to be okay without putting in the effort and putting in the work. Uh, literally, hands down, this was not possible. This was never to happen, but God made sure that it did. And, being able to have something like that to lean on, like you're saying, why aren't these people leaning on? Their faith is little, just like you said, your faith is like a mustard seed. And I've struggled with that from time to time. We're human. We want things right then and there. And, whenever you're dealing with God, it's on his timing. And, there's no rush in that. And it's, uh, it's something that's really discouraging sometimes. As humans, we want it right then and there. We want our fast food. We want our internet to load. We want all these things. But what we really need to want is the love of Jesus. And, I feel sorry for people that don't have that type of community surrounding them. And that's what I'm trying to do is, we're going to have a 1-year program for guys to come in straight from jail, straight from prison, and teach them how to walk by faith, teach them job placement skills, teach them how to manage their money, teach them how to do recovery. And, all this is going to be done through Christ. And I think it's going to be real successful once we get things up and running. It's important to have that community. That's one thing I've liked about New Life is, Leah's really focused on community. Community makes a difference. She's seen it in her past, in her uprising into Christianity and being involved in leadership and groups. And it's worked for me. It's worked for her. It works for about anybody that wants it to work. You have to want it to work. If you
Amen.
don't want it, it don't matter what you do. It's not going to work. But I think it's really important to surround yourself with a good church, good supporters, and things like that. That'll help you be more successful if you're coming out of a life like that.
Is there any advice you'd give people that, like, let's say they're listening to this show
Yeah.
and they have a loved one that's incarcerated and they're trying to get them resources to community like this? Where would you send them?
Send them to me.
Sure. Like a website, or we'll put that. We can put that stuff in the bio too for the show.
Yeah, we haven't gotten a website put together
No
yet.
problem.
Yeah, once we have a house and everything, Leah's going to help me do a website and things like that. But, I have email, phone number. Anybody can contact me anytime if they need any resources. We have really been digging in a lot on getting the resource folder put together, and we've gotten a lot.
Awesome.
From job placement skills to doctors to glasses to any kind of help that you might need, to get started and get back on your feet. We've gotten about all the resources there is here in Augusta County and Rockingham County. We've been meeting with both of the reentry resource council meetings and things like that in both counties, and it's been really helpful. There's things out there that we didn't even know existed. So we're kind of plugged in with all that now, and we're able to help people now until we get a home.
Yeah.
So, anybody can contact me anytime you need to. That's no problem. You can give out my information or whatever.
Yeah. We'll make sure it's in the show bio. So if you're listening to this show, just know that we're going to have on the show notes, you can go and you can find Nathan's contact email. And if you have a loved one or a friend that's looking for these resources, please contact Nathan, if I can speak. Contact Nathan, and then Nathan can help direct you on what you need to do for your loved one or friend that's needing these resources. So Nathan, thank you so much for just blessing our listenership with coming on here and sharing your testimony, and then sharing what you're doing about the change that you've experienced. And for everyone that's listening, thank you so much. And until next time, keep walking out your change.